Welcome back to episode number 16 of the Income Insights podcast. I'm your host, Denny and alongside me, we got CTO Jüri Pruulmann. Jüri, thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Obviously, being the CTO of Income Marketplace, our discussion today will revolve mostly around the technical aspects. And a little disclaimer for all our listeners and viewers on YouTube. I'm not the most tech savvy guy there is in the world, as probably most of the others are from the investor side. So we try to keep it very general, very basic. And so that not just the IT nerds are going to be served in this episode, but we try to find a common ground, common understanding. So also us normal investors, I would call them, understand the technical terms and the technical discussions that we're going to have today. But before we dive into the more IT related topics, Jüri, maybe to get to know you a bit better, you could start off by just quickly give us a short introduction about yourself, about your personal as well as your professional background.
Yeah. Hi, Danny and everybody. My name is Jüri, and I am IT professional for almost 30 years already. So I have a long background of building different kind of systems in my past. I started with about 30 years ago already in school to build a finance system for the wholesale company. Moved on with building a warehouse and distribution systems. Built Estonian pharmacy IT system. Most of Estonian pharmacies use it today. I had a couple of startups back in the days. Logist.it is one of them. It's a cargo and fleet management system. I have been working in fintech mostly for past decade. Started with one international lending company. We are operating up to in 7-8 countries at one point. There was a bank also involved in that. In one of the countries, we had a bank. After that, I created my own company, software house. Then we went on servicing more fintechs and banks in Brazil, in Nigeria, in Indonesia, Poland, Finland, Estonia. And about that time also, the founders of Income Company proposed to build this magnificent system for them. So I joined the company at the inception stage, and basically the system you're using is my brainchild. So we had a team of different developers to implement it, but yeah, the system and the underlying logic is running on a certain engine that I developed, and yeah, here we are.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so maybe just a quick follow-up question. What was the exact connection with the founders? Was it with Kimmo, and how did it all start that you became a part of Income Marketplace basically from the get-go?
We worked together in one of the previous companies with Kimmo about 10 years ago. He was a founder in that company and also CEO at some point. And I was CTO in his previous company. So we had a good relationship. So he asked me to join this one also.
And for you, because you mentioned you got also, let's say you got several business on your own that you set up throughout the years. What was the excitement for you to join this venture in particular? Maybe, you were also busy with other duties at the time, or you still are, but what was the excitement for you to join this project?
I have defined myself or retrospectively looked at myself that why I do some things. And turns out that I like building things. So building new systems, IT systems, or building IT teams. Building, actually, my hobby is building, I don't know, addendum to my house at home. So I have each summer some kind of a building project that I do by my hand. It's a hobby and it relaxes me. So building new systems and building new things is kind of me.
Okay. And now, obviously, switching to the more technical side of the income marketplace infrastructure, how would you, to someone from the outside looking at it, how would you explain how the IT system of income marketplace is designed? You said like it's kind of your child and it came out of your ideas. And how did you develop it? And what was the starting point? What were the challenges in the beginning? And just like what are the, what's the complexity behind it? How is it run? Or maybe you can also compare it. How did it start off and how is it run today? Is there a big difference? Yeah, maybe just some rough ideas about how the IT system of income marketplace works.
Sure. So that again actually started from the same previous company where we worked together with Timo. Um, you know, there are usually this kind of IT systems are built in the face of the developer. So meaning that we have certain, let's say, customers or investors or loans, and we put them into tables and try to manage with those. But this is not really a good way to look at things, because traditional relational database systems tend to have breaking points. And one thing with a financial system is that you need to maintain the history and look into the future. And usual systems, when you overwrite, maybe it's too technical, but basically, if you overwrite something, then the history is lost. So back at the previous company, I proposed and developed such financial engine, and we have this kind of grand name for it. It's called Time Machine. So Time Machine is able. Yes, so we built a time machine. And the idea behind it is that why time machine? Because with that engine, you can go back in time, look at any state of any object in a system, and also actually with some assumptions go forward in time. So in income, it's not we don't use that to go forward in time, but in a lending, it's really needed. When you go forward in time, you do the assumption that people pay on time, then you get the actual schedule of the loan. And turns out, and the time machine, it's combining two technologies. One of them is 600 years old. It's a dual entry ledger system, what every company uses in their finances. And another one is event-driven engine. So we are able to capture all the activities whoever participating party in the income is doing, and manage to figure out what's the state or what was the state in historically. So this engine was implemented in different company, but is used in income also. With that, we achieve a couple of different goals. First of all, that when you look at your account statement, it comes directly from the source numbers. We don't filter them or anything. We don't fiddle with them. It's actual numbers and actual order that our finances look them. We don't need to combine it anywhere. So, and that makes every person who works with finance or knows what double entry ledger is able to understand the numbers immediately. Usually there are several layers of report makers or so-called translators between the IT system and finance or whoever management. But today with this engine, every person who knows about finances or bookkeeping understands immediately what's happening in the system. Another thing is, yeah, like I said, absolute certainty that the numbers you get are correct. The system is running fully automatic in that sense that people don't fiddle with the underlying numbers. People can have say what I want to do, but everything that is related to the original need is fully automatic and stored in the ledger. So, for example, if we have a situation that something shouldn't supposed to happen or there is a human mistake, then we correct the mistake today. And if we go back in time, look in yesterday, then the mistake is still there. And we know that why some, let's say, investors saw some numbers historically differently, and now it's different. So we have the whole steps written down in the system. So if you have issues, we can explain.
Yeah. I would like to go one step back. So, from my understanding, you kind of, with the time machine, you have developed, let's say, the blueprint of the IT backbone already with another company in the past, correct?
Yes, true.
And back in the day, was it like the origin of this IT system? Was it developed by you? Was it based on some external systems? Was it all in-house developed, or what's, let's say, like the core of the backbone?
It was developed in-house. I was the architect of that system, and I was keeping my fingers in every step. I had a team who actually built it. It's by my developers or our developers at that time. And in Income, we expanded it as needed here. But the core engine is kind of fully functional, in-house developed, covered with tests, and I would say bomb-proof. If you don't go into the database, and we don't allow people to do that, then I can, yeah, put money on it. Actually, I have actually also. And
Now,
to make it more, I'd say, um, we are actually using this same engine in two banks and altogether about 10, 11 different companies around the world. Like I said, Nigeria, Brazil, Indonesia, Poland, Estonia, and Income is one of them.
okay, so can I imagine it a bit like you build something and you kind of sell it like as a, how to say, like you as a franchise, so that you can basically sell the infrastructure to other companies? And is that also like part of what your business aside from Income Marketplace is all about, to help other companies to build up the IT based on your created system?
Kind of, yes. Not all these companies are. The system wasn't sold by me. It's only a couple of them because the IP of this system is not mine only. So Kimmo also has it. So it went from different paths. But me or my team, actually in one company, totally outside the company-owned team is working with this. But most of them are yeah, implemented and adopted by my team.
Can you share if any lending companies, maybe also some that work with Income Marketplace, run with the same IT system?
Yes. So I think only this Brazilian what's the not so good lender in platform?
You, you mean ClickCash?
ClickCash, yes, exactly. ClickCash was also using this.
Okay, okay. Interesting. How does it work with the with the IP, do you sell it? Do you is it like a license that you purchase? Is it like on a rent system, or I'm not
Uh,
too familiar with this kind?
so for one company, I know we just sell the perpetual license. But in most companies, the license is actually part of the uh, owner's agreement or something. So they want to use this, and they get some stakes in the company, or I don't know exactly in each company, but in some of them is this is this way.
Hmm. Okay. Now, for your IT system, do you also use some external third-party services alongside, or do you really build everything in-house with a core of developers?
Today the building of the IT system is never building everything by yourself. A lot of the parts of the systems, I would say it's today's IT system is mostly like a Lego. You build some blocks yourself, but you take a lot of blocks from others. In Income, the time machine engine is one block taken from previous developments. Um, Authentication actually is one block that we are using external service. Infrastructure also, we don't own any servers. We run it in AWS, and monitoring external service. Yeah, this is by heart. This is like a bigger services. But if we go into detail, then again, uh, we are using some bigger frameworks to build the system. We don't need to build every bit and byte from scratch, because it makes much easier to get ready with the system. And also the security part. In one hand, if it's external system, then you rely on others people's security. On the other hand, if the other system or the building block is big and well known enough, then all the fixes also are coming quite fast by them.
Hmm. Let's say on a more practical side, if investors are looking at the income marketplace platform, there's obviously the IT is basically something that at times becomes visible when there appears to be a loading issue, when there's notifications to reload the page, or when you see like maybe AI is not working as smoothly as some investors would like. So there's visible, there's invisible parts. Where would you say, from a performance perspective, are the strong points of the income IT structure? Where the weak points as of right now?
Yeah. um, to be honest, it's the system was built on reliability and security foremost. And we knew that at some point we will have some kind of performance issues, because it has been running pretty well in business side, meaning that we have significant growth. We have growth in both the investors and loan originators side, and also the amount of loans on the platform. But the performance comes from events, or let's say in investor side, every time you invest into something, we will write it down, right? Every time loan originator puts a loan into the system or makes a repayment or buys it back or whatever happens, we make a note of it. We didn't know at the beginning also if we have a lot of small loans like Indonesian lenders currently have, or we have one big loan and two investors in one loan. So it makes huge difference if you have a 100,000 1 cent investments or one investment with 100,000 amount. We knew that the system will need some improvement. We actually have done a lot of different improvement over the times, infrastructure or system speed or pre-calculations or whatnot. And at the beginning, we didn't know which part is the most the where we have the speed issues first. So it didn't make sense to calculate all the possible outcomes, but rather to react on as it goes. We have been doing that, but of course we are still growing, and the growth is it's not a total hockey stick, but it's still exponential. So every month and year we get more and more events, and we are reacting on it.
What are, let's say, how easy is it because it sounds like from the outside it might be, there might be a perception of, okay, just, buy more storage or whatever, or just buy some processes that enable to process the thousands of transactions that happen every day just a lot faster. Is it that easy to just, let's say, throw money on the system to implement something that, and the performance is immediately fixed? Or do you have to, let's say, go a step back and implement something more on the IT side, which enhances the performance? So where's the solution on the performance side?
Both solutions are there, and both of them are also used. The difference is that with pouring more, let's say, it's actually pouring more money into the infrastructure gives you the edge and the opportunity to be faster. On the other hand, it is what it actually is. Like, you need to pour more money in, and it's costly. And when you increase the infrastructure, then it's permanent cost. If you do something in IT side, it's one-time cost, and then it's running on the same lower, smaller infrastructure. We have done both. At one point, when we see something is happening, we increase the infrastructure and look into the reasons. Then we implement something, and then we can get the infrastructure cost back down again. One thing what we also have, we don't have permanent load on the system. So maybe you have understand or seen that in some days it's slower, in some times of the hour it's slower, and it depends on many things, like when this money is coming into the accounts. When we import bank statements, then money is coming in, and then the AI starts to invest. That takes resources. 2 days a week when loan originators get their amounts cleared, it's again more resources are needed. So we have built the system in a way that it follows the need. So when we have bigger load, the system automatically allocates more resources to process it. But it has also a little bit lag. So let's say something big is starting to happen in the system. In 10-15 minutes, we understand the load is bigger, the more resources is poured into the system, and the load comes down. Actually, not the load comes down, but the response time for example, investors is coming down. So it follows the load automatically. We don't need to push our fingers into doing it. But again, when you see this no answer in the background or messages, then usually you just need to refresh, and then you will see the actual numbers again.
From your perspective, now looking at the, let's say, more short-term future, let's say next 6 to 12 months, do you feel like to increase the performance, it's more a matter of just like putting more financial resources into it? Or is it more like developing the IT to a new standard?
Rather, we have a currently plan. It's maybe you already know, or actually I know you know, that we are raising some more funds, and then the part of that funds are going to the improving the performance in IT side. So we have a backlog. We know where the issues are. Actually, we also have the ideas how to do it already written down. It's just currently behind the finances to do the implementation.
Okay, let's talk about the listing process when loan originators want to put their assets, their loans on the platform. Assuming all the the onboarding went well, all the legal documents have been signed. How challenging is it to set up an IT integration between the lending company and the marketplace so that the loans then for investors appear on the platform? Can you walk us through the, let's say, technical workflow and how complicated, how complex it actually is in the background?
Yeah, we have kind of developed the API for LOs, so loan originators, to list the loans and operate with it in our platform. Um, it's I would say we have about 10 API endpoints to interact with us for a loan originator, and it takes only two or three endpoints for them to implement to follow everything that they need, or actually we need. So they need to put the loan on the platform. They need to know where the money from them is imported into the system, and they need to allocate that money into the loans. So these are three endpoints they need to implement. I would say the standard solution the LO is using, that means that they are following their own borrower loan schedule. This makes it quite easy for them to actually send the loans to our platform and allocate the money, because they don't need to keep a different schedule as other platforms have. Whenever they list the loans in other platforms, they need to keep the different schedules from the borrower and the peer-to-peer marketplace. We follow the exact loan of the original borrower, so it's indeed a little bit different format that they use internally, but they don't need to implement too much there. The We have seen different issues. Maybe you see also the lender or the borrower part in a user interface. Then because of GDPR and whatever different laws are in different countries, they can't actually show the name of the borrower. But most of them, when they start implementing, they are so honest, and they will put the original borrower name with a, I don't know, maybe in a birth date and address. But otherwise, I would say it's fairly simple. It takes a little bit time to get it properly right. So we need to match their schedule points to our schedule in marketplace that you can see. But it's a one-time match, and usually it's fairly simple. I was actually quite surprised when this Dana Rupia, who is and ITF, when we started with smaller lenders, then they had much more issues. But with this big amount of loans that these two companies are providing, it's been running really smoothly. They have, I would say, really good IT personnel who understood the API and connections, and yeah, it's not hard. Like I said, they need to implement three endpoints. But when they want to monitor and understand what's happening in the system, then we allow them to get all the information, who is investing, not personally, but like by investor IDs, how much and who is investing, who we pay interest, how much. So it's totally transparent. They know exactly how much we pay for each investor, for each investment, how many euros are invested into every loan, and so on.
You actually partly answered one of my follow-up questions, which is if there are lending companies where you have a very confident feeling that they have like capable IT resources that really understand their business, where you don't have any complications with the IP API integration. So would you say Dana Rupia ITF are the standouts among the lending companies in your portfolio, where they really they have like decent knowledge on the IT side, and the collaboration on the just simply the technical side works very smoothly?
To be honest, I think most of the LOs that we onboarded understand it and get along with it quite well. We haven't had company with a huge issues. It's a original onboarding. They work good or work very well with the examples we give them, and it hasn't been in a way that there is something not so good person implementing it. I would say it's the loan companies have pretty good IT staff and knowledgeable, and I haven't seen big problems.
Obviously, API integration, everything, like these days with so many transactions, everything is automated. But where do you see like more? Is there a part where you feel like there's more manual work required when it comes to loan listings, because you see some issues, you have to continue fixing certain bugs with lenders? Does that happen?
Not much. Maybe I will explain a little bit also this lender part and API part. So two things are most critical with lenders. The original loan listing, and also whenever the borrower pays and they send money in. So what we have done, we have, I would say, really deeply or anally even validating everything that they send in. Our main concern from the LO side is to make sure that our investor is getting their money back in a right way. So what we have seen is that the issues with the loan originators happen when they do something irregular with their borrowers. So when they forgive some part of the principal, or sometimes they come up with a new product that they try to run in our system, where they increase the principal part, and this doesn't match. They declare that they listed on the platform, let's say, €500 loan, and at some point they increase it to the borrower to €600, and then the math doesn't match anymore. So we follow our internal numbers that they have declared before, and also with all the extension parts and repayment parts and repayment dates. So we check every small little bit and make sure that the money that the investor gave is repayable by the LO or the original borrower. So the issues usually don't end up in our system. The issue is blocked when LO is start trying to send something in and it's not validating in our side. So whatever issue LO has internally, the worst thing that happens to the investor is that they get their money back later. But the later means that everything that they put into that loan is still in earning interest. So if you see, and this I see also in the Telegram chat also, that especially when new people come on the platform, then they are worried about loans being late. Don't worry about, you still earn the same interest. So every mistake that LO does, they pay for it, and you get the interest from that. So if they make a mistake in API, the money delivery is delayed, and it's their interest to fix it as soon as possible, because every day they delay, they pay interest to you.
But in hindsight, this could obviously also be a sign of if a lender doesn't, let's say, doesn't have his act together, and there's some technical issues on the other side, and you never know like how deep those IT issues run probably in their lending operations, that it maybe rather than some miscalculations on a small scale, they can end up being then quite costly in the long run. So maybe that's also part, let's say, to be a bit more cautious, especially you, since being at the source of the information, understanding when you get mirrored the issues immediately right away when something is not working properly according to the schedule, right?
Yeah, I'm thinking about if it's like a IT issue in LO versus borrower is delaying with a payment. Um, I would say if you have more than one investment into one loan originator and you see repayments in some loans and then you don't see repayments in other loans, then it's a good indicator that it's more about one or some loans, not the LO. If you don't see repayments for that LO at all, then it could be, I would say, maybe more alarming, but we haven't had such alarming case so far. Um, mm, it's maybe this background about how the LOs are putting money or the borrower money into the platform is they send a huge payment to Income, actually Income SPV, this dedicated SPV, and then they allocate the whole amount to the bunch of loans. And if even one of the loans is not matching, then the whole bunch is rejected. So we don't allow error in the whole batch. But usually these, especially the big ones, they do even a couple of transfers a day or certainly in a week. So some of them still go through. And if it's the only couple of investments or sorry, some couple of loans issues, then the system is actually working. We have had not IT issues, but also transfer issues. We work with loan originators from around the globe, and sometimes when the loan amounts are growing, then of course the repayment amounts are growing, and then this payment can end up into some double checking in some banks if the transfer goes above certain amount. But again, usually these things are solved quickly, and your money is safe.
Safety is a good point. You said the IT on Income Marketplace, it's built or with the idea of safety and reliability first, early in our conversation. Now, obviously, IT security, cyber attacks, it's becoming a bigger and bigger topic. We have seen some platforms being affected also to a smaller extent in the past. What is it that you actually do to, let's say, perform IT security checks, assessments, and how do you protect investor accounts from external cyber attacks?
Good question. And let's start it from one side. So we are performing regular penetration tests or checks to understand if we have certain new bugs or actually the old bugs that were discovered in some time in our system. We do regular updates of these external libraries we use. This part is more or less covered. Then other part is the actual attacks and protecting the investor accounts and money. One thing is that we are relying on giants' shoulders. So we are running our system in AWS, and we are using the security services provided by AWS. For example, every API call goes through the certain filters that can monitor if something irregular is happening, or this one thing is called DDoS, the attack where some group is attacking our systems in order to take it down, and not get into the system itself, but overload the system so you can't interact with it. So, for example, this part is AWS's work. They detect it and they block all these kind of attackers. Another thing is security-wise. We are using the Auth0 service. It's again quite a big authenticator service provider, and they are keeping up with everything happening in that area. So we are paying for the service, and they are keeping monitoring it. It's I don't know, daily, hourly basis, basically. The Auth0 service is, I know that investors have asked that why we don't have 2FA, like two-factor authentication in the system. We actually do have that in our test environment. It's up and running and working. Unfortunate thing is that it's either yes or no. It's on for everybody or off for everybody. And we have seen it's like a 50-60 when we did a questionnaire about investors with the investors, then they had a 50-60 chance if they want or they don't want. So it's not like 95% of investors really need out 2FAs. It's more like giving the option to them, and this giving the option requires a little bit more IT development, and it's also again in a backlog and waits for its time. On the other hand, why we haven't enforced it for everybody is that there is not much people can do if they get access to your account. So what they can do basically is invest your money, making saying that your idle money is invested and starting to earn interest. It's not really too bad. Another thing is they cannot withdraw the money into their own account or any other account that isn't transfer the money into income. So basically, they either can invest your idle money, that's kind of a good thing, or they can withdraw your money into your own account. So, and that's basically nothing happens. You can, if you find that, you can report it to us, and you can transfer the money back and start investing again. So what could happen is that they get access to your, I don't know, email or maybe whatever information you can see in your own account. But it's, I wouldn't say it's a information breach. It's only one account you can get access to. Accounts are not related to each other. So if you have access to the platform, you can only see your own account. It's not possible to jump into another account view or moreover steal everybody's data. So it's governed by this Auth0 service, and for peace of mind of investors who don't, I don't know, who are hesitant in that sense. That's why we are planning to still build it, but without it, I would say your money is still safe, and not much can be done if somebody hacks your account.
If I remember correctly, one incident in the past from another platform was that in the same name as the account holder was on the platform, they created another bank account and then basically used maybe a small deposit amount to then have the new bank account being verified on the platform and then to withdraw the funds back to the new setup. Is that something that is potentially a danger on income?
You earlier asked also about the manual part. So in LO flow, there is no manual interactions. So every loan listed on the platform and repayment, it's totally without our interactions. It's totally different with the onboarding of investors and sending money in and out of our system. Every transaction coming into the system is double checked, first of all, by our banking partner. So we accept money only from actual bank accounts. So these TransferWise and these non-banking transfers, they are rejected. So it's not possible to basically make an account with the same name unless you have exactly the same name. So in Estonia there are some common names and only this common name twin can actually do that. And same goes with the transfer out of the company. So I have heard in my previous company of one lending company in UK. They built a lending system and they had this basically what they did, they launched the service on Friday and they were bankrupt by Monday because somebody found that they can get the loan, cancel it and get a new loan and very fast. So, and when it was automatic payout, then millions were transferred automatically. Because of these experiences, we have this manual step between, meaning that actual person is overlooking the incoming and outgoing payments. This makes the transfers a little bit slower. I understand that some investors have had issues that money is not in my account yet, what and when it happened, but it's mostly for your own security. We are implementing some of the features to increase that speed, but at this point we don't mean to remove the human interface between this actual money transfers.
Then you mentioned also the 2FA implementation, which you said is still something that's in the backlog, highly desired by investors to have this option as well. What's the current timeline for implementing it, and how difficult is it actually to implement it?
Again, not too difficult. It's maybe a couple of week worth of development time. And one thing I think the timing is alongside with the secondary market. I know that it's also an important topic because secondary market is something that somebody can use that you don't intend. For example, you have I don't know, a lot of investments and I can get access to your account and then I put your loans to the secondary market with a really cheap price and immediately buy it out with my own account. That's one scenario that we have looked into, and I think secondary market and 2FA, optional 2FA comes with a hand in hand. Or if it's a priority question, then probably we'll enforce the 2FA for everybody if the optional is not ready yet.
That's actually also one of my next questions because it was said with the proceeds from the crowdfunding, secondary market is one of the main objectives, assuming now enough funds are being collected. When can investors expect the secondary market to be on the platform?
So I don't remember exactly the investment round deadlines, but I would say it would be about within 6 months after closing the next investment round. So in general, within next year or even in this calendar year.
And what are the particular challenges, let's say from a technical side, to implement the secondary market then?
Just having resources to build it. So we have mapped it out. We have task backlog. with everything we need to do it. It's just start and implement. It's currently it's a finance question, not a technical issue.
Okay. How many team members do you actually have that work on the IT? I'm assuming there's maybe some, let's say, like a default team, and you got the hat on most likely. Is there a team of developers, let's say 2 on a regular basis, and then depending on the workload, you get your external resources, and then at times, I don't know, it's maybe 5, 6, 10 people that work on the IT. So how much how many resources, how much manpower is involved in the IT?
Because of the really good and strong system that we built, we don't need to have a permanent IT resources. We have part-time contractors who are obligated with us to put in certain amount of time, but pretty much the system is running by itself. We need only these resources only either to build new features, improve systems, or in some cases answers investor support tickets. So a lot of support tickets are revolving around that why this loan was invested, or and usually it's auto invest misconfiguration or misunderstanding how it works. But we have had even months that we don't any IT personnel is touching the system. We have monitoring in place, so if something is happening, either system is getting slower or there are errors, amount is peaking somehow, then we get immediate notifications, and then we can react on them, and we are reacting on them quickly. But yeah, it's unless we are building something new, there is no permanent people involved full time. Amount of people: sysadmin, backend developer, front-end developer, and mobile app development. For mobile app development, we actually bought it in. It's an external company from Romania, and I think about 2-3 people were involved during the building of that.
Okay. I would like to go back maybe 2 steps again, because there was another question that came to my mind about the cyber attacks. How often do you face external attacks? And are you aware when they happen? Because I'm assuming you mentioned like the storage of the data happens with AWS, is I think Amazon Web Service, right? So how often do you recognize actual threats that happen to your system? How often do they occur? To which extent? And are you aware of them in the first place, or is that something that's just noise that gets blocked out? Or do you really get proper signals? Look, something is happening. Someone wants to enter into the system.
If I remember correctly, then in Income we have had one time when some kind of irregular traffic was peaking. It was coming from one IP or 1-2 IPs, and we saw the increased load. Our notification or monitoring system notified us immediately, and at that point it was really easy to just block those couple of IPs. It wasn't even like proper DDoS attack when they tried to take it down. I think it was something that they I think it was even somebody who was almost legally trying to use our system, because if you don't know, then the front end that investor or user interface is using is purely built on APIs also. And I think one of the investors, or I don't know exactly group, tried to automate something, and their code wasn't good enough, so they were starting hammering our system. So I would say one time during the whole income lifetime. In other companies, other systems, I have seen more of those, but yeah, I think income company is quite small also. So mm, and maybe because of the security systems that we have implemented, it's not lucrative to actually attack. So there is little that they can actually do except trying to take down the system. But for that, we also have pretty efficient systems in place.
That's actually a very good point in my opinion, because as probably the size of income, will hopefully grow with years to come, and it will probably become a more appealing target for certain cyber criminals. Obviously, you have to evolve or step up your IT systems, your protection mechanisms at the same pace, ideally even faster. But you see then also, like, with significant growth coming, hopefully additional needs to protect the system, and how exactly do you think this will facilitate in your IT investments for the infrastructure?
Exactly.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Yeah, no, maybe it's already also a bit too far thought in the future. I think probably for now we can look at the short term and midterm outlook and see that income apparently seems to be well prepared with new features coming, such as the secondary market, 2FA then alongside. Any new functionalities, anything planned to optimize the page speed, the running of the AI? Is that coming then as well with the crowdfunding?
Um, yes, so the basically a couple of areas where we plan to invest funding round is like secondary market, 2FA, general increase of the system speed, because now we see again a next wave of um, let's say places where we can improve the speed. About auto invest being slow, that's actually not really true. So far, the auto invest is worked as expected for us and planned. So maybe it's an interesting topic to cover actually, because in general we run auto invest or put every auto invest that has opportunity to invest into the running queue every hour. And why it's this way, that we built the auto invest functionality to be more really clear and fair for everybody, because in one way we need to be fair for investors, but all the other way also for the loan originators. We don't want to, and we don't prefer anybody over anybody. So there is no loan originator that gets preferred amount of money, or there is no investor who is preferred over others. So we at every hour we put all the auto invest strategies into the queue, and they are run quickly through every time, and they are running parallel. So if we have more auto invest, then the more parallelity we have there. This is the auto scaling part of our system. If you see, investors actually can see when the strategy was run last time. And if you see that it's more than an hour ago, then most probably your criteria is not, or your free money is not matching the availability of the loans. So don't worry. Whenever your money is coming on account, and then the furthest away was last investment, the topmost you are in the list of getting your auto invest filled next time. So yeah, I would say this way. It's not slow. It's intended as it is. Some of investors found out that when they store or save the auto invest portfolio or the strategy, then it will be put into the queue quickly. And that's true. So if you are really hungry for some loans and follow up the Telegram channel, then you can manually trigger it. But I'm not sure it's way to spend your day. When you have money on your account and the income has loans on account, then you can just let it run. But yeah, when the loan amount is scarce, then indeed there are these things that you can do when you to get your money invested quicker.
All right. So don't mistake, let's say, unmatching investment criteria with available loans, and don't mess it up with IT issues on the other side. That's then the message. All right. That would be it so far. I think there was a lot of IT talk for the day. I hope most investors are satisfied with getting probably a glimpse of what the IT system behind Income Marketplace looks like, and who is the, so to say, the godfather behind it, and who is responsible for the IT development. Thanks a lot for your time, Jüri, for all those insights. Of course, if there are any questions left, please drop them in the comment section below, and then Jüri and Income Marketplace, they will have a look and answer accordingly. Because I'm assuming there might be some IT savvy geeks that feel like that was just superficial questions, and if they really want to go into the deep, feel free to drop some comments below the video. Jüri, thanks for your time once again. Best of luck with the proceeds, hopefully coming from the crowdfunding fairly soon, so Income can start optimizing then the platform also from the technical side. Thanks a lot, and thanks again also for the viewers and the listeners for joining in, and we see each other and hear each other then in the next episode.